Hey everybody, this is Barry Zundell, and I'm going to take you through a real brief walkthrough of Stage today. So what I want to do is focus on all the features and how they work and how you can get in and start working right away. First things first, Stage is a real-time rendering platform to be able to visualize 3D data. And so real-time means that I can fully interact with this. I can click and drag, so I can drag with my left mouse button. I can zoom with my roll, the middle mouse button roll, and I can also pan or move side to side if I push the middle mouse button down and drag it. So really easy to get in and navigate. So I'm going to import something. So I'm going to import an FBX, and I'm just going to grab this FBX file, and we can import GLTF and OBJ as well. And you can see here's my model, and this was built in Browserware's vStitcher. And so I can just click and drag around, and I can spin around with left mouse button. I can pan with my middle mouse button, and I can also zoom if I roll. I can also right click and drag, and it will zoom in on the bounding area that I decided to bound on. If any point I want to change where it's orbiting from, I can just put my mouse where I want it to orbit from. So say I want it to orbit from the zipper, and I just hit O, and then it redirects to that to be the orbit point. So it's really simple to go, oh, I want to look at this sleeve, just hold here, hit O, and now that sleeve is the orbit point. Okay. At any time, if I want to see the whole thing, I just hit F, and it frames the selection, or it frames the object. Okay. And now I can go in and I can use the camera controls. So I'm going to hit C on the keyboard, and now I've got camera controls here, and I can change the view angle, pitch, height. I can change the lens on the camera to be something a little bigger. So let's say it's 105 millimeter, like a zoom lens, right? I can also then pull my distance back, and I don't get quite as big of a field of view, which is great. So let's go back. Let's make it maybe a 50 millimeter. So I go 50 millimeter, and then I bring my distance in like this. So now I've got a 50 millimeter lens. I can change from autofocus. So if you notice, if I zoom in like this, if I'm looking at the shoulder, this is all in focus right here on the shoulder, but this over here is not. I can change it from autofocus, and then I can change where that focus is. So I can pull it back over to the shoulder here, the front shoulder, or the back shoulder. And then I can just change it back to auto. And I can change my aperture, so I can make it a little less depth of field or much more shallow depth of field, and so I have more depth of field. So those are all the camera controls that I can use. And I'm just going to close that. Now, what I have also is scenes. This is like a bright studio scene, and this allows us to get some really nice diffuse lighting, but we have other scenes to use as well. So one of the other scenes is a dark studio. Now this is just completely black, and we'll put lights in here in just a minute. This other scene is a dark studio with lighting. So it's the same dark studio, but it's got lighting in here so that I get nice diffuse light, but it's not so bright everywhere. This way I get some nice shadows and some nice form that I can use. And as you notice, it's got some lights in the front here, as well as a light up above. The other light, or the other scene that's available, is the HDR environment. So if I go to this HDR environment, you'll notice that I have like a beach scene. Now, there's no lights in this scene, but the environment is doing the lighting. And you'll notice that sun is giving me some nice lens flare and some bloom, and I'm getting that nice color from the sky over here, and the sky and the sun color over here. So HDR environments allow us to do some really cool lighting to match scenery. And so this is what I can do here with this scene. I'm going to go to lighting really quick. So I'm going to go to the scene and go to the dark studio. Now this has no lighting in it, but I can set up lighting presets. So if I go to my presets, I can choose butterfly lighting, which is this setup right here. And I can see this lighting. I can change to like a warm cool, like this. I can also change to a harsh front. So I have this harsh front light. And if I don't want to see the actual lights in the scene, I just hit L, and now those lights are not there, but I can definitely see the lighting on the model. So the other thing that I can do with lighting is I can create my own light setups. So if I go to lighting and I say create new, it goes black, and then I can name my own lighting. So I'm going to call it my lights. And I'm going to choose a softbox. So I'm going to say softbox, and I'm going to say add that softbox. Now what it did is it added this softbox model in, and I can grab it and move it around, and I can change the intensity and push that up a bunch. So I can bring the height down a little bit so it's a little stronger. And then one thing that I can do is I can create another one. And I'm going to pull that one over here. And this is going to be kind of my fill light. So I'll bring that height down a little bit. And then I'm going to take my intensity, drop that a bit so I still have some nice shadows, but it's not completely black. And then I'm going to add another one, and I'm going to drag it around back, leave it up high, and just kick up the intensity really high. I may bring the height down a little bit. There we go. So now I've got this kind of 3-point light system, and I'm just going to hit L, and then I can zoom in on it by hitting F, and I can see that 3-point lighting system. Now at any time I can click on the model, and I could rotate the model like this. I could scale it if I wanted to, or I could also move it up and down. So if I wanted it right against the floor, I could do that. The camera moves with the model, so I can go through the floor, up above the floor, and see the shadows. These are nice ray trace soft shadows. I can kick that up or down, however I want to do that. And I can rotate it. So I could say, okay, I want this look, and I want this look from the side or the back or whatever it is. So that's lights. Now I created my own lights. I used light setups, but now let's do something with animation. So I'm going to let's do some animation. So if I go to animation, you'll notice that I can use standard animations. And what this does is the animation is set up so that it uses the bounding box of the object. It starts at one point of the bounding box and goes to another point of the bounding box. So that should work no matter what model you have. So let's say a rotate up. It's going to start here, and then it's going to move up, and it's going to go to that view right there, and then it's just going to loop. So all of these preset animations, while they're not perfect, they try to do the best that they can fitting to the object, and then animating according to that bounding box from point A to point B. So I can just hit the space bar to stop at any time. But let's create our own animation. So I'm going to say create new, and it brings up this little box here, and I'm going to call it my animation. Okay. Now all I do is I just pick the starting point. So I'm going to say let's start from right here. Okay. And I'm going to say start here, and then I'm going to switch to, let's say, 7 seconds. And then I'm going to pan around and come up to this right here. So this is where I want to end up, right here. And I'm going to say add that. And now if I go back to the beginning and hit play, it's now going to just play this animation for me. And you'll notice that it'll loop, and it'll go from point A to point B with a really nice interpolated curve. So it gives a nice, real smooth way of doing animation. And at any time, if I wanted to have this animation playing in like a display room or something like that, I can just hit U, and it takes all the user interface off, and then it's just the animation playing for me. Just like that. So that's how you create a custom animation. Now let's say that I want to render it. Let's say I want to render, render this shot right here. Well, all you need to do, I'm going to hit U to bring the user interface back up. So I'm just going to go up to right here and say render image, and it's going to ask me where I want to render that image. And so I'm just going to call it something here, 123. Hit enter to render, and it's done. That quickly it's done. And that's rendering a 4K image with full anti-aliasing, all the ray tracing, everything turned up, so it looks really, really good. In fact, let me pull that up here for you so you can see it. You won't be able to see the whole thing, but I will show you what that looked like. So here is the render in full resolution. And so this is the render in 4K. So if you notice nicely. So rendering is very simple. We don't have animation rendering in there yet, but that's one of the things that we're looking forward to. But Stage is also an extensible platform, meaning that it's not just for rendering and animation and that kind of stuff. It's also able to fit into pipelines where other automation tasks might be needed. So taking 3D assets and doing automatic rendering from multiple perspectives and then putting those in a template a certain way, we can do all of that in real time rather than having to set that all up manually and do it offline and then put that stuff together in like a Photoshop file or using scripts or something like that. So we hope you look at Stage and think of it not just as a visualization tool, but also as an extensible tool that could fit into pipelines in lots of different ways. But this has been just a quick introduction on how to use Stage and what it can do, and we're excited for the future and where we're headed. and hope that you'll tune in for more feature additions later. So have a great day. We hope you like it, and you can go grab Stage at our website at www.stage3d.app. Sign up for the alpha there, and then download the latest version. And we hope you have a great time using Stage, and we'll talk to you soon.